Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope your week is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us. Plenty of Browns to talk about. Kevin Stefanski met with the media earlier today. The injury news, not great. Here is Kevin Stefanski on some of the banged-up Browns.
Kareem has a calf injury that's significant, so he'll miss some time. That's in the weeks. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has an ankle injury that's also significant, so he'll miss some time. That's also in the weeks. And then Baker with the shoulder, we'll just gather more information over the next couple of days on him, as well as Odell with the shoulder. Just going to gather some information, see how those guys do over the next 48 hours, call it. And then on the rest of the crew, I know the questions are coming on Jack and Jed and those guys and Jarvis, and we'll see. I don't have a firm answer on a lot of those guys, so we just got to get through this couple days and see where everybody is.
Kevin Stefanski earlier today talking about the injury situation. Keep in mind, short week. Browns will play the Broncos at First Energy Stadium Thursday. So welcome in Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. And Dan, it seems like the injuries are they're mounting in position groups. It's not one or two, it's two guys at the same position or three guys at the same position. So it will be a challenge on Thursday night.
Yeah, and they're mounting on the side of the ball, especially. Obviously JOK is hurt, but you look at the other side, you're going to be without you don't have your top two running backs potentially. We don't know Nick Chubb's status yet for Thursday night. You might not have your two tackles again. Odell Beckham hurt his shoulder again yesterday. He obviously finished the game. Baker Mayfield is hurt. It's just all kind of piling up on the offensive side of the ball, and it's going to make things difficult. Denver is still a very good team defensively, or at least they can be. They certainly have some pieces on that defense, and when that running game is impacted without your whole offensive line, without both your backs, that could cause some potential problems.
Yeah, and again, Baker Mayfield banged up again. We heard it. Here was Baker Mayfield yesterday about that shoulder and the non-throwing shoulder and how it feels.
Feels like worse than the first time? Probably. I'm going to get MRIs and stuff tomorrow, so we'll be able to find out more.
Do you have a sense if you'll be able to keep playing through this, Baker?
I do.
You will be able to keep playing through it?
Yes.
Is it, maybe you don't know yet, but is it the same, like a re-aggravation of the injury? Is it something new?
It dislocated again and then slipped out again on a non-contact play, so just got to figure out a way to get better.
So, Dan, when you look at it, you have short weeks, so there's like a 10-day rest period after the Broncos game. At what point, if you're Kevin Stefanski, do you sit there and think about, maybe we put Case Keenum in for this game just to try to get that shoulder feeling a little bit better, especially given that you don't have, you don't know if you're going to have your top three tackles. It's not your top two. Chris Hubbard, your third tackle, right. He had surgery. He's not around. So you're on your fourth and your fifth tackles yesterday.
Yeah, this is a tough decision for Kevin Stefanski, and it would be a difficult conversation with Baker Mayfield because he said yesterday that he absolutely is going to play on Thursday night. Now, it might not be entirely up to him, but, we know Baker, he's a competitor. After he got injured trying to recover that fumble, he went to the medical tent twice while the defense was on the field, and yet he still went out without missing a single snap and continued to play in that football game. So he's a competitor. I asked Kevin Stefanski today if quarterback is a little different, if there's just a higher expectation that these guys have to play through things. He didn't say that there was, but I tend to think when you look at that quarterback position, you kind of just expect these guys, unless, Baker likes to joke that the arm is still attached. So unless that arm is unattached, he's going to go out there and play. But Kevin today sounded like someone who at least is willing to consider the idea of starting Case Keenum, at least if it's in Baker's best interest. But they also have to figure out is this thing going to get better with rest, or is this just something he's going to have to deal with the rest of the year regardless?
Yeah, there's and again, MRI, they have not announced what the results of that are or what the thought is with Baker yet. MRI was supposed to take place today, as Kevan met with the media earlier, so we won't find out any of that until tomorrow, if we even find out then. Takeaways from this Cardinals game, when you look at it, it was really the first time that you kind of watched it and was like, Browns really didn't have a chance to come back and do much, really, in the fourth quarter. By the time the fourth quarter started, you kind of got the feeling that the Cardinals were going to win that game, and that's the first time all year where it's just been like, bleh, for the Browns.
Yeah, and I think this was a game where the Cardinals made it pretty clear they weren't scared of the Browns' downfield passing game. And I think we saw the Chargers do that a little bit, but you had Nick Chubb, and you had that Nick Chubb-Kareem Hunt combo, and Nick broke off some big runs. This game felt like the Cardinals were daring the Browns to beat them down the field, and they just didn't really do it. Yeah, they had the Hail Mary at the end of the first half, but you almost don't really count that as like a, in the moment, in the offense, we're going to hit you downfield at the right time sort of play. And so I think that's a takeaway from the offensive side. Some of that is they're just not healthy. I'm more worried about the defensive side of the ball. They've given up 47 and now 37 points in back-to-back weeks. And I don't know what the fix is for this defense. And that's the problem, because the defense is relatively healthy. There's some guys that aren't maybe playing a full load of snaps yet, but they're healthy. And you're leaving Mike Williams open for 2 long scores. DeAndre Hopkins somehow is just getting open or not being covered. And I think this defense is very concerning right now. So that's kind of my big takeaway, is how are they going to fix this defense? And unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, other than, you adjust the scheme and guys just need to play better.
Yeah, I would agree. And when asked about it, they were talking about the safety, a 2 safety look, a split safety look. If that's the problem, here, take that part of the playbook, just get it gone. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this isn't working, get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Joe Woods and Kevin Stefanski need to sit down and get figured out, because, you've gotten absolutely torched. Now, look, in their defense, they've played 2 really great offenses the last 2 weeks. But, who do you think you're going to be playing in January? You're going to be playing teams that have really great offenses. And it's not just the fact that these are great offenses. It's the fact that, anybody could tell you coming into this game, you can't let DeAndre Hopkins get free, and you got to tackle him when he gets the football on that quick pass that led to a touchdown early in the game. It's little things like that. It's the miscommunications. I don't know if the scheme fits the players. At some point, we're going to have to really kind of dig in and question that if this continues. There's a lot going on, and maybe the next 5 or 6 games will help the Browns get right.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel good right now.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing, Odell Beckham looked pretty good. In fact, Sam Penix tweets out, Odell's Pro Football Focus rating, 90.3, highest grade against the Cardinals since week 14 of 2015, the highest for Odell. And keep in mind, he did miss some snaps because the shoulder was banged up, but there seemed to be some different looking plays to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, there were some signs of life, I thought, from Odell in this game, unlike that Chargers game or the Vikings game, really, where there were the miscommunications and the ball just wasn't coming his way. I think really what this grade speaks to, though, is Odell continuing to be willing to do the little things. So he's willing to get down the field and block in the run game. He's willing to be a decoy at times and, just accept the fact that maybe the ball's not going to come his way as often as he wants it to. And he talked about that last week. He said he's kind of like James Harden. You don't pay James Harden to shoot, or you don't pay James Harden to be a decoy. You pay him to shoot. And Odell is a shooter. Also admitted that, if they need him to be a decoy, that's what he'll do if it means winning a championship. So I think this grade speaks a little bit to some of that stuff, being willing to do some of the dirty work, especially with Jarvis Landry out.
So the Browns allowed 352 yards of offense, and the Cardinals 8 of 15 on 3rd down, 1 of 1 on 4th down. You don't win too many games like that, do you?
No, obviously not. You got to get off that field on 3rd down. The game started with a 3rd and 19 touchdown. defense in the NFL sometimes is about just those moments, right? You're going to give up some yardage. These offenses are so good, and especially the really modern offenses, they can move the ball really effectively. When you get down in the red zone, when you get teams to third down, you've got to be able to get off the field. And we've just seen it over and over again with this defense, that in those little moments that can, be the difference between an empty drive or a drive that results in points, they're unable to get off the field. And yesterday it was just, it almost felt like all the bad parts of this defense, all the things that we've seen here and there throughout the season that seemed to go away for a couple games there in the middle, they all came roaring back in this football game, and we just saw all the problems bubble up here against the Cardinals.
Well, the other question that was put to John Johnson is this defense pressing, trying to get some turnovers, just trying to make things happen? Here's John Johnson on if the defense is pressing.
Maybe in like the back of our minds, we're trying to press and make things happen. I think that's just like a natural thing for a competitor. But I don't think it's anything, one specific thing around us. I just think it's, guys want to compete, guys want to make plays, and you do find yourself pressing sometimes to make plays. And like I said early in the season, it's really like when you just do your job, it might get a little boring sometimes. You end up falling into plays, and that's what we got to really trust and lock into, and it'll end up paying off for us.
And is the lack of takeaways playing into that too?
I would say so. Like I said, you want to make a big play. You want to get the ball back to the offense. You want to get them going. You want to spark momentum and stuff like that. And takeaways is we preach on it every day. We practice it every single day. We really make that an emphasis, and we're not seeing them. So that could be a part of it. But I think, like I said, let the plays come to us, and they'll end up coming to us.
And, I get that. I can, if you keep saying takeaways, Browns really haven't been able to do that defensively.
No, they haven't. And, some of takeaways is being in the right place at the right time. It can be a very luck-based stat sometimes, but also, like John Johnson said, if you're doing your job and you're trusting your technique and you're where you're supposed to be, that defense can work hand in hand to force some takeaways. Myles Garrett hits the quarterback. You go get the ball when it flutters out of his hand, something like that. So that's really, it just seems like, I don't know if they're pressing or not, but it does seem like maybe sometimes they get a little bit overeager. They maybe fall for a play action, something like that. We see the safeties get themselves a little bit out of position. It's just things are a little bit off on this defense, and it's costing them. And again, you look at that touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins at the end. I think it was a 9-yard touchdown pass where he just ended up wide open in the back of the end zone. Those are things that just can't happen. I mean, anybody who's watched the Cardinals can tell you don't have to be a defensive coordinator to know, find number 10 and make sure he's not open.
Yeah, and it just seems like, they're trying to make plays that aren't necessarily there, and that's kind of and they're getting punished for it. Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear from Kevin Stefanski about some turnovers. We will also take a look. Does the Browns defense need to be simplified? Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns. 3-3 on the year. Short turnaround, getting ready for the Denver Broncos. Kevin Stefanski talked about the turnovers the Browns had yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals.
I don't think any of us were as crisp as we needed to be, Tom. We turned the ball over 3 times. They turned it over. We had 0 takeaways. We had been doing a decent job of taking care of the ball, up until yesterday. We just were a little too careless at times. And again, we didn't take it away. So you finish -3, it's just not how you're going to get a win in this league.
And that, again, the Browns kind of focusing on that. So, Dan, here's a question for you, though. You've got, and this might be the 2 that you have again, is Blake Hance, James Hudson, 4th and 5th tackles. There was a lot of pressure on Baker Mayfield. Had to step up, step through, step around, sacked 5 times, pressured a lot. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's again what Kevin Stefanski is really trying to figure out. I think they've got to get back to, this is a team that does like to throw the football early in games. They like to come out in that big personnel sometimes, that 13 personnel, and throw the ball early. Now, against the Chargers, they didn't do that. They actually ran the ball a good amount in that game. And, when you've got a couple tackles that maybe aren't your starters, like you said, they're your 4th and 5th guys, maybe you do pound the football a little bit early in the game and at least kind of get your offensive line thinking aggressively, get them thinking moving forward, give them opportunities to get out in space maybe and block guys. Get that screen game going. If you've got Kareem Hunt, and obviously they're not going to have him for a few weeks, but they had him yesterday, maybe get that screen game going a little bit. You'll have to figure it out now with Demetric Felton and Dearness Johnson in that role, most likely. So that's another way to do it. And some of it, too, is Baker needs to recognize some things. There was a play where Marcus Golden yesterday came unblocked, but, all the offensive linemen had assignments. So sometimes it's on the quarterback to recognize where that pressure is coming from and kind of almost throw back at it. You've got a hot read or something over there. You've got to be able to do that. So it's really about setting up that quick passing game, getting that run game going a little bit, get that screen game going a little bit, just make it so that defenses, and Von Miller on Thursday night, for example, they're not going to pin their ears back and just come at you.
The other thing that happened in large part because, as you mentioned, the Cardinals were not afraid of the downfield passing game, so they had a bunch of people at the line making it difficult. So the Browns, 19 carries, 73 yards running the football, so under 3.8 a carry. How concerning is the run game? It's not going to be, if you don't have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, it would tell you those two are your 1 and 1A for a reason. So how do you deal with that?
Some of it comes down to the offensive line. They really do a good job in this scheme of opening things up and not having those tackles hurts. Part of it is Kareem Hunt was banged up already. He was questionable in this game. And you wonder if Nick Chubb would have been healthy, if Kareem Hunt would have maybe sat this game out. I think he was slowed a little bit by that. The other part of it is these two work so well as a duo. Nick Chubb is your home run hitter. He's so good at the cutbacks and things like that, kind of in the middle of the field, in the middle of a drive, he's great. Then Kareem Hunt can come in a game, when you're inside the 5-yard line and just power his way in. These guys complement each other so well. And sometimes when you only have one, you kind of lose that a little bit. And Kareem Hunt, I think we saw last year when Nick Chubb was injured and he missed 4 games. I don't know if he fits this style as an every down back. He's really best in this offense as sort of that secondary back, that guy that can catch the football. He leads the team in receptions. He leads the team in touchdowns. So he's doing something right. But when they've asked him to be the featured back in this offense, it hasn't always looked like it did when he was in Kansas City.
Yeah, and now, again, multiple weeks, 4 to 6 is what the reports are. The Browns have not said. They haven't put that timeline out, but that timeline is out there. The other thing that we touched on last segment, the defense, it's been, it's a concern without question. So Anthony Walker was asked, does this defense just need to be simplified?
Well, I'm a coach's son, so I view the game a little differently, probably. I was always raised and taught that you play whatever the coach call, and if you execute the call and do exactly, what we're supposed to do and exactly what your job is, if they beat you on a play, then that's that's fine. We'll correct that. But when we're beating ourselves, we're not executing the call, that's a different story. So, Coach Joe, obviously every coach feels like they can make a call or a different call at this point and that point. At the end of the day, we get the call, we got to execute the call. I think he trusts us and what we have on the field, and we trust in him and what he's going to call. We just have to execute at the end of the day.
And we heard that repeatedly. It was, they're not basically doing what they need to do on the field.
Yeah, it's always so complicated to look at the defense and figure out if the scheme is a personnel. When it comes to simplifying things, it always seems, and we've been through this a lot in Cleveland, when a new defensive coordinator takes over, the first players is, well, they're going to simplify things. They're going to, change the way we talk about the defense. It's going to be simple, just see ball, get ball. The reality is it does just come down to when the call comes in, you've got to execute it. At the same time, you've got to make sure that scheme fits those players, like we talk about on the offensive side of the ball so much. So, one of the things the Browns have to figure out is, if Joe Woods wants to play a bunch of zone, is that the right fit for a guy like Denzel Ward? Is that the right fit for, is he using his safeties correctly? How does this all kind of go together? And that's why, if they don't get this defense figured out, that finger is going to continue to point at Joe Woods, and that seat is going to get a little bit warmer as we go along here. And, it's just something he's going to have to deal with as this season plays out.
So Browns are now 3-3 on the season after starting 3-1. They are tied with the Steelers in the fourth place, however you want to look at it, in the North, behind the Ravens 5-1 and the 4-2 Bengals. Joel Bitonio was asked about where the Browns are and how they approach the game coming up Thursday against the Broncos.
From a big picture point of view, like, do we want to be 3-3? Like, no. Do we feel like we should be 3-3? No, but we are 3-3, and that's kind of like where we're at. Luckily we have 11 games left, and that's a long season. It's starting with the Broncos in 3 days, and I think as a team we understand we're not where we want to be. We haven't played a complete game yet. We got our butts kicked by the Cardinals yesterday, and now we can only grow from that. If we put our heads down. If we look back and say, man, we should have won a couple of those games we lost, like all that is not going to help us. I think the guys understand. I know we're getting ready for Denver now, but the guys understand what has happened. We're to learn from it. We're going to put our best guys out there, and we're going to fight. And it's actually not that hard. I mean, we have 11 games. We have a long season. It's everything we want is still in front of us.
And again, can't argue with Joel Bitonio, but the answers need to come pretty quickly for him.
They do, and there needs to be a sense of urgency now. Even though there's 11 games left, you've got to have a sense of urgency. The Ravens now are 5-1 with 2 games behind them, and you're hitting a point in the schedule now where you can actually do something. Now, obviously, health and how guys are over the next few weeks might play a role in that, but it starts this Thursday night. You play a Denver team that is 3-3, but their 3 wins have come against teams that all have 1 win. So that, I don't know if they're very good. Pittsburgh is, I know they won in overtime against Seattle and Geno Smith, but I'm just still not impressed with them at 3-3. Cincinnati, very good. It looks like, at least offensively, and they've been one of the surprise teams. You've got New England, you've got Detroit in this mix. You've got some opportunities before you get to those games against the Ravens to really turn this thing around and get it pointed in the right direction, thanks to the way the schedule is set up. And so you've got to approach this with a sense of urgency. Hey, we're a better football team than the Denver Broncos. Let's go win that game, get to 4-3, and let's get on a little mini roll here after that. Yeah,
I mean, if the Browns are going to do what they want to do this year, this next stretch of games is, they've got to swing them in the right direction and get away from that 2-game losing streak. Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter from cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We'll dive into some 4th downs. We'll also hear from Myles Garrett on the defense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football with Dan Labbe. So a lot has been made about how aggressive Kevin Stefanski has been as far as the play calling goes on 4th down. Browns were 1 of 4 on 4th downs. Here's Kevin Stefanski on, calling those 4th down plays.
We have to call better plays and we have to execute better. We need to, in those moments when we're going for it, I got to make sure that I give the guys something they can execute, something that we can get the ball out of our hands on time, those type of things. And that's where I need to be better. Each game is different. I've said it before, we're not being aggressive just for the sake of being aggressive, trying to be smart in what we're doing.
Now, Dan, I think what Kevin Stefanski is getting at, they were very aggressive against the Chargers and the Cardinals on fourth down. Those are teams you expect to have to score a lot to be competitive with because of Kyler Murray and because of Justin Herbert. I always want to call him Bobby Hebert, but Justin Herbert. Anyway, I'm showing my age. When you look at a team like the Broncos with Teddy Bridgewater, it's not the same high-powered offense. Would you expect, you know, if they're in field goal range in this, you go and you take the 3 points because it may be a lower scoring game?
You know, I think they're going to continue to be aggressive. I think this is who Kevin Stefanski wants to be. You know, again, this is a data-driven organization. This is an organization that believes heavily in analytics and relies on it. And that tells you, you know, you be aggressive on fourth down and you try and maximize your points. I know that sounds strange when, you know, it hasn't worked out in their favor. You know, 3 points is better than 0, but, you know, over the long haul, if you're successful on fourth down as much as you should be, or somewhere around a league average, you should come away with more points over the long haul. And that's kind of what they're looking at. I like the idea of being aggressive. I like the idea of forcing a defense to have to defend you for 4 downs instead of 3. Now, that being said, like Kevin Stefanski said, he's got to get this figured out to where he's giving this team opportunities to actually convert these fourth downs, because Baker Mayfield has been sacked a bunch on these fourth down plays, and that's unacceptable. You've got to at least get the football out. And so he's got to give his guys better opportunities if he's going to continue to be aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, the fourth down plays that haven't been converted, there have been a number of them where they were almost doomed from the beginning of the play, to be fair about it.
Yeah, and look, you've got the weapons to kind of make this easy. You know, I know it's never easy at the NFL level, but you've got guys, you know, when Jarvis Landry is healthy, and he should be back on the field soon. You know, Nick Chubb hopefully will be back soon. You're going to be without Kareem Hunt for a little while, so, you know, we won't include him in this discussion. But, you know, Odell Beckham, you've got a bunch of tight ends who can make catches for 2 or 3 yards, right, which is usually what you need on some of these fourth downs. So maybe it is about, we talked about simplifying on the defense. Maybe it's a little bit about simplifying on these fourth down plays and just letting Baker Mayfield find that mismatch, getting the ball out quickly and getting those conversions.
So Myles Garrett yesterday talked about the defense and just, you know, what they need to do to get things turned around.
We just have to, you know, find ourselves. We're not rushing like we're supposed to. We're not covering like we're supposed to. We're not living up to, you know, who we are and the potential that we have.
You talk the touchdown drive with the 4 defensive penalties. How frustrating was that? Did you take the air out of the defense at all? What was going on?
I mean, it's frustrating, of course. You know, you can dispute the calls all you want, whether, you know, they were did or not, but, you know, you're still out there. You still got to make a stop, and you still got to show up the play. You know, whether it's 1 yard or it's 10 yards, you know, you got to defend that goal line. You got to defend the end zone, like it's your last play. So, you know, it doesn't matter about the penalties. We can't let that, you know, get to us or shake us. You know, we got to step up and make a play.
So, Dan, what's been the biggest concern when you look at the defense, especially the last couple of weeks? What kind of makes you go, did not expect that?
I think it's got to be the back end of the defense. I think we're still seeing that front 4 create pressure. You know, look, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, they're going to kind of make you look bad. You know, Kyler Murray kind of reminds me a little bit of Steph Curry in some ways. He'll be a little bit reckless. He'll be a little bit wild, sometimes loose with the football. But just like Steph Curry will pull up from 45 and hit a 3, Kyler Murray will just make plays no matter what you do. So it's hard to kind of look at Cardinals and the challenges they present and make, you know, a real hard judgment on this defense. But just collectively, I think it's the coverage right now. And I think it's the fact that they've been so prone to giving up big plays the last 2 weeks that's really concerning. And it's not just that they've given up big plays. It's how they've looked. Mike Williams completely uncovered. I've mentioned Hopkins a number of times here. That's the most concerning thing right now.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at the amount of blown coverages there have been, because the talent level is there. I alluded to this. So Ravens are 5-1. They've been banged up as well. Bengals are 4-2. Browns and Steelers are 3-3. Is it time to panic if you're a Browns fan, or not so much?
I don't think it is. And I think it comes down to what I talked about earlier, the schedule here before they have to play the Ravens. So they have this game against Denver. They host Pittsburgh. They play at Cincinnati, at New England, and against Detroit. It's not out of the question that this team should be 7-4 after these games. I mean, they should be favored in every single one of those football games. And I just don't see why they can't come out of this thing at worst 7-4 and have an opportunity then to go up against Baltimore in back-to-back weeks. And that second game is very favorable because Baltimore's got to play a game in between. The Browns get their bye week finally in between those two games. So I don't think it's panic time yet. There's obviously things you got to keep an eye on. Baker's health, the health of these running backs. You got to get your tackles back. You got to get this defense figured out. But they are going to get a chance to kind of catch their breath a little bit against some teams that they should be more talented than, be favored against, and they should be able to go out and beat.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll look ahead to the Broncos game. We'll also talk about that running situation. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt might both miss. What do the Browns do? We'll talk about that. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Dan Labbe. Browns getting ready for the Denver Broncos, a short turnaround as they will play again on Thursday. John Johnson talked about the importance of this Broncos game.
It's huge. It's huge. Like you say, we're coming off 2 losses. We do get that little mini bye. We get that weekend off to rest and recover. So I think this is like a pivotal point in the season. What is it, game 7? So we're getting up there in games. We're approaching the midway through the year. So I think this is a huge game to win, get back on track, get the momentum back on our side going into those division games. So like you said, that mini bye will help out a lot. It'll be huge for us. But it's definitely a must-win game on a short week.
And Dan, there's a little bit of that sense of urgency that you talked about that you expected to hear from the Browns, and rightly so.
Yeah, I mean, this game gives them an opportunity. They're going to hear about this stuff for 3 days, how bad that Cardinals game was, the loss to the Chargers. You go out and beat Denver. You can make everybody start to feel good about this team. And like John Johnson said, you get that little mini bye, you get the weekend off. Everybody starts feeling good. You're going to be getting ready to play Pittsburgh on Halloween. It'll start to feel like, all right, let's have Big Ben come into First Energy Stadium and let's finish off the Steelers here. Let's send Big Ben maybe in his final game in Cleveland off with a loss. You'll get fans feeling good. I think the players will be able to feel good about themselves. And again, this should be a game that the Browns can win. Even if circumstances aren't perfect, this should be a game that they can win.
Now, we talk about the Broncos. Defense is really good. If we know Hunt isn't playing, he's multiple weeks, will possibly end up on injured reserve. There's a chance Nick Chubb is not playing either. What do you do if you're Kevin Stefanski if you have neither of them? Broncos, really good run defense, 5th fewest rush yards against against them in the league at 85.5. So you don't have your top 2. Do you throw the ball more? What are you doing if I'm putting you in that offensive meeting room?
Well, you start by praying that Jarvis Landry is going to be able to go on Thursday night. They designated for him return on Friday, soon to bring him back for Sunday. But you hope that Jarvis Landry is able to go, help you in so many ways. You get creative with Demetric Felton. He'll get some opportunities there as the running back, and at least you have a guy in Dearness Johnson who, might be one of those backs that has to have a good line in front of him, but he can find holes. He can give you some chunk plays. He's carried the ball for you before, and he's been a part of this offense before. So at least you have him. Obviously, there's a huge drop-off when you don't have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They're two of the best backs in football. It's probably the best running back combo in football. So there is a huge drop-off. But you can find ways to keep the football moving. And if you have Dearness Johnson, Demetric Felton, Jarvis Landry, I think you can get creative enough to at least simulate a running game, even if some of it is just quick passes to Jarvis. Those can be like running plays for you.
And the other thing to keep in mind, Odell's banged up now as well, so it will be interesting. How do you see this playing out? So the Broncos come in here on a Thursday night. How do you see that game playing out?
It's just hard for me to say the Browns aren't going to win this game. I'm not impressed with the Broncos. They've had some injury issues of their own. They're 3-3, but again, they've beaten Jacksonville, they've beaten the Jets, and they've beaten the Giants. So those are their 3 wins. The Browns, for as rightfully as they've been criticized for what happened on Sunday and what happened against the Chargers, they have played well against teams that aren't as good as them. And frankly, they've been in games up until yesterday. They've been in games with the Chiefs. They were in that game with the Chargers and had a chance to win it. So that tells me this is still a good football team. And things got a little bit out of hand on Sunday. I feel like that was an outlier. I feel good about this game and the Browns being 4-3 early Friday morning.
When you look at some of the key guys that they need to try to get back, you mentioned Landry. Who else do you think of the banged up would help significantly on Thursday?
One of those tackles would be enormous to get either Jedrick Wills or Jack Conklin. If you can't get both back, to at least get one of those guys back out there, so then you can maybe move Blake Hance to the other. If it's Wills, you can move Blake Hance to right tackle. If it's Conklin, you can keep Blake Hance over there, but you can maybe help him a little bit more on that side. You don't have to worry about James Hudson and helping him as well. I think those 2 guys are the really big ones to get back. I mean, obviously, look, if you can get Nick Chubb back, that would be fantastic. But I think you can at least manufacture enough. If he has to miss another game and you have to play it a little bit safe with him, you can probably manufacture enough of a running game if you get at least one of your tackles back to not forget Nick Chubb, but, run the ball effectively enough to do what you need to do.
When Kevin Stefanski and this coaching staff looks at this, how much do you think, do you think if there's any doubt at all with health that they kind of err on the side of caution, because you do have that quote-unquote mini bye coming up, and you want to get folks healthy because it's a banged-up football team?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough balance for them because, this is an important football game, and you don't want to, be sitting there when this thing's over at 11:30 or 11:45 Thursday night and say, man, we really should have played a couple of these guys that maybe could have gone. Maybe we would have won that game. So I think you've got to strike that balance a little bit because this is an AFC opponent. This is a game you should win, and you don't want to be 3-4 heading into this stretch here. So, I think they'll strike that balance. They've done a good job of that so far, of kind of determining the guys that need to kind of fight through some things and some guys that maybe should sit out. But I do think, like, if Jedrick Wills is even close to being able to go, or Jack Conklin is even close to being able to go, they might push it a little bit with those guys, and then maybe use that 10 days rest to their advantage if those guys are banged up a little.
As you look at this matchup, what are some of the keys, some of the areas that that the Browns need to make sure they take care of so that they do in fact come away with a win on Thursday?
You can't let Denver's defense figure out how to wreck this game. You can't let Von Miller, play like J.J. Watt or Marcus Golden did yesterday. You've got to make sure that, you're protecting Baker Mayfield, or if it is Case Keenum, you're protecting them enough to get the football out. And you can't come away from this game thinking, man, Von Miller just absolutely destroyed this game, and that's why the Browns lost. You've got to neutralize what they do on defense, because offensively, this should be a chance for this defense to at least get a little bit right going against a Broncos offense that has some weapons, but isn't, it's not the Chargers, the Cardinals, it's not the Chiefs.
And the last thing I would say is they got to take care of the football. I mean, I always say that, and people will always, oh, of course they do. What you saw yesterday, what happens when you turn the football over in the NFL, and it is no good. The game gets away from you in a hurry when your offense turns the ball over.
And it's something they've been so good about. I mean, Baker Mayfield, that was probably the biggest step he took in the second half of last year. He really took care of the football. And yesterday, you saw the fumbles, you saw the bad interception. That's kind of why you say that. It's because it's something that's not normal for them to turn the football over. And like you said, you see what happens when they do.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Dan, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, Dan Labbe, make sure you read him in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us. We will talk more about the Browns, looking forward to the Broncos, and looking a little bit more back at that Cardinals loss yesterday. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns. The 3-3 Browns, a short week. They will get ready to host the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN's Get Up had this to say about the Browns after 6 weeks.
Most disappointing team in football. They're a 6-0 roster, and they're a 3-3 football team. You're at home playing a team that's got to travel to you. And I get it that there's injuries on your football team. They got to go to you. They're without their head coach. They got a guy calling plays that, to my knowledge, has never called plays in the NFL. They're missing their best defensive player. And they score on 3rd and 21 to start the football game. Come on, defense. Then they score on 3rd and goal from the 13-yard line on a screen pass that Hop just makes guys miss. Way too many blown mistakes. This defense that they invested a ton of draft capital in and money in, and I was sitting there going, my goodness, they're going to take a weakness into a strength. You guys have played 3 good offenses this year. They put 33, they've put 47, and they put 37 on you. I mean, this is a football team that should be much better. And Baker Mayfield, I've had his back. I still have his back. You did the one thing you couldn't do in that game. Turn the football over in your area twice to start that game. This is the most disappointing team in football right now, a third through this season.
Let's welcome in Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. And as I have said many times, I can't necessarily argue with that. I think the talent on this roster is much better than 3-3, and I'm guessing the folks in Berea probably feel the same way.
On paper is the phrase we used all off season. And in a conversation between you and me, Dave, that's the phrase we used a lot, was what this team could look like on paper. And until we actually saw them on the field, they should look a lot better than they do right now. They may not be able to add up to what people were expecting fully right from the get-go on paper, but they should look a lot better than this. There is no argument with Dan Orlovsky on what he said. And the turnovers, the defense, yes, the injuries are a problem as well, but everything seems to be going wrong and went wrong yesterday. It was kind of a microcosm of where this team's been headed over the last couple of weeks. It's just everything seems to be going wrong at the wrong time, and at least they have a short week to try to right this ship before they get a few extra days off.
Yeah, and yesterday was really by the beginning of the fourth quarter. Yesterday was the first time this season that they really, you didn't feel like they had a chance to come back. I mean, the way the game was going, they had turned the ball over. You were kind of going, it's not their week this week.
Watching that game, I just felt disconnected towards the end of that game and in the fourth quarter, Dave. It just, like you said, it never really felt like they had a chance as you got down to the end. The crucial drive was when the defense was able to get a 3-and-out to start the second half after that Hail Mary play going into the locker room. You felt the momentum starting to swing the Browns' way, and you felt like the offense may be finding something. It's not that you're going to hit a Hail Mary or a deep pass every single time, but when you get big plays like that, and then your defense backs it up, gets a 3-and-out, come back on the field, and now Baker's on the ground two out of the 3 times, or being rushed, and you go 3-and-out, that's where I felt like the air just went out of that game right away. As much air was put in by that 57-yard Hail Mary pass to end the half, that 3-and-out really took a lot of that air right back out.
Yeah. So Kevin Stefanski talked about making a decision on Baker Mayfield, given the fact that, that non-throwing shoulder got banged up again. Here's what Kevin Stefanski said about the decision whether Baker Mayfield will be playing against the Broncos or not.
I think we'll make sure, Tom, to work through all that in the next couple of days, and obviously take what the medical staff says, what Baker in this case says, and we do that for all of our players. That's making sure we make prudent decisions with all of these guys.
And Kevin, the interesting thing is the Browns can win with Case Keenum. They can absolutely win with him at quarterback. I guess the question becomes, is there anything that Baker Mayfield could be doing that would prolong or make the non-throwing shoulder more of a serious injury if he continues to play?
And that's the medical answers that they got to get over the next 24 hours, because we heard about JOK and we heard about Kareem Hunt and how they're going to be out a significant amount of time. They already have the medical information on them. We don't have anything right now on Baker Mayfield, but they need to look at that. And I understand them talking to Baker as well, how he feels. And yes, you can win with Case Keenum. And if they use Case Keenum instead of Baker Mayfield, that's not this whole conversation of can Baker play or not that a lot of people are starting to bring up. This isn't a detriment to or a knock on his play or his ability to win in the NFL. This is a betterment for him. Kevin Stefanski said we talk to our players about how they feel too, along with the medical personnel. With how competitive Baker is and how much he wants to help this team win and keep improving himself and keep improving this team, if it's better for him to rest and get healthy for AFC North play and to win with Case Keenum on Thursday night, they may need to take the conversation out of Baker Mayfield's hands and just leave it in their medical staff's hands this week.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's going to want to be out there. You saw that when he came running out of the blue tent after being in it twice when he looked like he was down for a while. Well, the other thing Anthony Walker kind of said it best. Browns have to feel like they beat themselves yesterday. Here's Anthony Walker on that topic.
Honestly, like I said, we played 2 great teams. Obviously, they get paid to, make plays. It's not like, we're not going to say that they're not good players. They're great players. It's the NFL. You're playing against the best every week. So at the end of the day, we can't give teams, we can't have communication errors. We can't have blown assignments and expect to win. That's just not going to happen. So when you're playing against great teams, you have to, make them earn everything. And I feel like when we do that, we have times where we play good defense in those games. And then when we don't do that, we're giving up big plays. So at the end of the day, we got to make it, where they earn everything. And if a team beats you like that, I respect that. But if we're beating ourselves, that's when it hurts.
And I got to believe they don't feel like I'm hoping that nobody in Berea feels like they played a good game. They didn't play well yesterday. And when you don't play well against a good team, you see what happens.
You do. And they're talking about it. They're saying the right thing after, that they don't feel good about it. We need to see that kind of execution now change on the field. And yes, people can talk about maybe a missed call here from referees, or, what is pass interference, what isn't. But it's not just those plays that are helping teams get down the field. Yes, there might be a penalty-ridden drive that helps an offense go against this defense, but there's too many blown assignments, like Anthony Walker just said, too many blown coverages in the secondary, like Anthony Walker just talked about. Communication for, yes, a lot of new players. It looked like they had found something to build chemistry upon in those 2 wins, especially up there in Minnesota, with only allowing 7 points, and the week before that only allowing 6. It looked like they have found the answer to some of their chemistry building questions. And now that's just reverted right back to they are not on the same page at all. And that's not just play calling, that's execution by the players. Everyone takes fault in all of that.
Yeah. The other thing is they got to find a way to put players in positions to be successful. If that means simplifying it, that's fine. And this coaching staff has been pretty good about that, I think. I think that's one of their strengths. They need to maybe tweak what they're asking some of the guys on defense to do, because it hasn't worked out against the better offenses. Do you agree with that? Am I reading too much into what I'm looking at there?
No, I don't think you're reading too much into it. I mean, it's just like, when you get that bright, shiny new toy, you want to use everything on Christmas morning. You want to use that toy. You want to play all day long. It's one of the best gifts you've ever gotten. This team had so many new toys and tools to use on defense, and Joe Woods probably felt like he had the defensive personnel to run what he wanted to run. But if they're trying to do that too soon and throwing so many concepts at guys that haven't played with one another, knowing how they each like to play, especially in that secondary, how they're going to press coverage or, kind of in zone, what they're going to kind of do to try to show offense is something different. Until they learn those little things, you can't really open up the playbook. It kind of helped Baker Mayfield last year for Kevin Stefanski to do things that Baker does well, but also simplify what his offensive playbook looks like. Now we need to see the offense kind of take the next step as teams have adjusted to them. This defense just needs to keep it simple and allow these guys to just do what they do best. And everybody's got to look in the mirror, and I know the coaching staff is, the players are, but now you can't just talk about it. You got to be about it, and that has to start on Thursday night.
Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about some of the penalties on that defense. We'll also look ahead, some of the keys, some of the things the Browns need to get done to beat the Broncos. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns. Short week as they get ready for the Denver Broncos on Thursday. Browns were penalized 9 times for 88 yards in that loss to the Cardinals. Anthony Walker talked about those penalties.
Anytime you get a couple, questionable calls, whether they're questionable or not, you get a little antsy. Guys want to get off the field. Obviously we have to play better, play smarter. At the top of the routes and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the NFL. Some calls aren't going to go your way. Just more so, like you said, we got to flush it and move on. And then when you're playing against a good team with good receivers, we can't give them anything, And I think the penalties, whether they were right or wrong, we can't have them. And like you said, but when they do happen, we got to flush it and move on. And we got to be able to get off the field, and hold them to a field goal once they get in the red zone. So. We have to be better with that.
And again, some of those calls were bad calls, but that isn't why the Browns lost. The Browns just didn't play well, Kevin. I mean, there were bad calls, but every call could have gone their way. The way they played, they were still going to lose that game.
You can't give up 37 points and expect to win. And, maybe if one touchdown was aided in some of those bad calls, that's still 30 points on the board that you're giving up. You're not going to be able to win against good teams and good offenses if you're going to give them 30-plus points every single time. I'm kind of listening to some other sports talk today and some other shows today. Some of the better teams, when you're playing these Kansas City teams and you're playing the LA Chargers, you're giving up 47 points, 33 points, 37 points yesterday. You can't do that and expect to win. Yes, this is a pass-happy league. Yes, this is an offensive-driven league, and some of the calls aid in the offense. It's been around for a little while now, and these defenders, a lot of those guys have been in this league, and they can show the rookies what that's like too. You got to know that whether it's a good call or a bad call, and whether you're shooting yourself in the foot with penalties or you feel like you're making a good play and they're still calling something against you, you got to have that next play mentality. It sounds cliche, and some people probably scoff at it, but you really have to have that next play mentality when a call may go against you, because the offense isn't going to stop driving down the field. Nothing just stops because they agree that you had a bad call against you. So you gotta suck it up, and you got to go make that next one.
Well, cliches become cliches by and large because they're true. Some of the keys as you look at this. So Browns, Broncos, again, it's not one of those teams like the Chargers or the Cardinals that you expect to put up 35, 42, 47 points. If they do, your defense is in bigger trouble than we think. But some of the keys to this.
I mean, keys are going to be who can they get back off of injury. I know you and Dan Labbe were talking about that before coming on the show today. And the tackles, can one of them go? Can both of them go? That's going to be a big question mark. Can Jarvis Landry go? I think that's one of those missing skill position pieces. No, it can't be an excuse when you just have one guy out and you got some other talented receivers and skill position guys out there. Things can't and won't go perfectly for you in the NFL. But I think Jarvis Landry is one of those glue pieces that, as a leader and what he brings you on third down and just the relentlessness that he brings you out there on the field, that's the one piece that they've probably been missing. And against the defense in the Broncos that doesn't give up many rush yards, one of the best in the league of, holding teams down in their rushing attack. Browns like to run the ball. Will they have Nick Chubb, or is it going to be Dearness Johnson and Demetric Felton, two younger guys or less experienced guys to try to break through and get the Browns back to their identity, which is physical up front, run the football, and use play action off of that. That's going to be a huge key and a huge storyline to watch over these next 3 days.
The other thing I would say is if it is Felton and Dearness Johnson, you might do a little bit more of the screen game because, the Broncos do have a defensive line that'll get after the quarterback.
And we saw yesterday Baker kind of scrambling around, and he held on to the ball too long, but there were times that as soon as he looked up, there were guys in his face, guys coming through. And guess what? When one team does it and has success with it, another team is going to try similar schemes in their kind of vernacular, their kind of defense that they're putting out there on the field. They're going to try to mimic some of that until you can fix those issues. So this defensive line from the Broncos will get after the quarterback, find ways between Kevin Stefanski and if Baker does play, or if it's Case Keenum, find ways to get the ball out of their hands quickly. And you do have good running backs across the board in that room, and some good tight ends too, for some tight end and running back screens to gain positive yards and not just dink and dunk a couple yards down the field at a time.
Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Kevan, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dave. Always appreciate our conversation.
All right, Kevan Arnold, make sure you listen to him, Voice of the Land podcast. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. Scheduled guests tomorrow, Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan and Tim Bielek from The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.